And the final conditional statement that helps you control the behavior of your code is the switch statement. There is a significant difference between else if and switch, although on the surface they probably will look very similar to you. Let's start with a very simple example. We will simply have a number and we will switch on that number. The switch statement has cases similarly to ifs. So we use the switch keyword to start with. We open brackets and we give it whatever we want to switch on. In this case, we want to switch on the number. On the next line, we create a case. The switch statement has cases, similarly to else if. We use the case keyword and whatever value we want to compare with our number. So if we want to check if that number is 100, this is how we do it. Enter. On the next line is the body of that case. So if our number is 100, we want to add 1 to that number. If that number, second case, if that number is 101, we want to add 2 to that number. If that number is 102, we want to add 3. Case 103, number plus 4. And finally, we end with otherwise, which is just like else. This is the default condition, the default case. We simply want to print the number and end. Now, we are not switching on logical complex conditions like we do with the ifs. It's possible to have a condition for the case, but that is not the point. We are checking each case against this value. So we are giving it some value and we want to check that value against different variations of that value. So if we give it the number 100 and we run it, we get 101. If we give it the number 103, we get 107. Here you can have more than one row of code, of course. Let's compare this with an if-else if equivalent. So if number equals to 100, we want number plus 1. Else if number equal to 101, we want number plus 2. Else if number equals to 102, number plus 3. Else if number equals to 103, number plus 4. Else number end. Now look how much more we had to write here. We had to always specify exactly what is our condition, exactly what we want to do. We always had to specify that we want to check if the number is equal to that value, while the switch case does this for us automatically. It takes this number and it checks to see where it will get equality between the value of that number and the case that we gave it. The switch, now let's delete this. The switch can be used to switch on any kind of values. So let's say that we want to generate a square matrix, just like we did a couple of times so far, but this time we know that it will be a square matrix. So let's create a new variable called rows, and we have 5 rows and an empty matrix. So matrix equals to nothing. So we are switching on the rows. Depending on how many rows we have, we will generate a different kind of matrix. First case, rows are equal to 3. If the rows are equal to 3, we want to generate a matrix of 3s. So times 3. Case 4, if the rows are equal to 4, we want a matrix of 4. So ones of rows times 4. Case 5, if the rows are equal to 5, ones of rows times 5. Case 6, matrix equals to ones rows times 6. Otherwise, we will simply generate a matrix of zeros. So if the rows are not in any of these conditions, if we don't match any of these conditions, we will generate a matrix of zeros. Let's run it. We get a matrix of 5s. Let's change rows to 3, we get a matrix of 3s. Let's change to 2, we get a matrix of zeros. Let's change it to 8, again we get a matrix of zeros. So, a general rule of thumb. If you need to use logical conditions, multiple checks, something complex in general, go with if, else, if, else. If you need to check a single value against different specific cases of that value, use a switch condition.